Good morning. Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. This is going to be my Hoop Hogs 16th ranked Arkansas Razorbacks second charity exhibition game, the final dress rehearsal, but on the road at TCU under another high major opponent, another Big 12 opponent as Arkansas wraps up the exhibition season and moves right into the regular season next week. So there's several things that, stand out to me about the importance of this game, even though it won't count, as we know, in the final tally. It doesn't help your postseason resume. It doesn't count towards your one-loss record. And then we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting because it's another weekend of important recruiting visitor. It's time to move on from Wilson. There's already that. So unless I miss something, he's still planning to move to. He tweeted intentions on Monday to visit Arkansas. I checked probably 15 minutes ago to see if there were any updates on him. I didn't have any. Someone's already saying that. So in case I missed it in the last 15 minutes, please tell me. But this is another one of those weekend scenarios where Razorback fans are hoping for 2-for-1. One weekend where you get a couple of wins, Friday, Saturday. A week ago, it was Arkansas knocking off the top-ranked Kansas Jayhawks, knocking off Kansas at Bud Walton Arena in the first exhibition game. And then Saturday, the football Hogs were on the road and had a big win over Mississippi State. The challenge this weekend for the football Hogs is bigger. The perceived challenge for Arkansas's basketball team against TCU may not seem as daunting, but you are in your true first road game. So let's get through some of this. True road game, again, exhibition doesn't count. We've gone through the history, so we'll just put the caveat disclaimer out now. Take the exhibition season with a grain of salt. Last year, Arkansas has a win similar to what it did against Kansas. Of course, that game went to overtime, but beating a team projected as a potential championship team. We know the Boilermakers won the Big Ten and also went all the way to the national championship game before losing there to UConn. Arkansas wins that game, has a losing season. 2 years prior, Arkansas's first ever that I'm aware of road game against a high major program in an exhibition season at Texas. I was there for both of those games. Purdue last year, at Texas the year before, and Arkansas loses by 30, and that ends up being an up and down season due to injury, some youth, growing pains. Arkansas ends up being a Sweet 16 team. You had the 16-point win, again, repeating last week, 85-69 over top-ranked Kansas. Both teams were shorthanded. Kansas, 3 players out, including all everything big man, potential national player of the year, Hunter Dickinson. Arkansas without all SEC big man, Jonas Adu. So Kansas a couple of guards. So you have to kind of file that file it away, and then let's see what this means later. And the next test is tonight against a TCU team. You look at Jamie Dixon. He's been at TCU and done a good job there. It's obviously not Kansas. It's not Kansas based on expectations this season historically, but who is? Kansas is a blue blood. But I think this is a good test for Arkansas for several reasons. Some of it I wrote about in my Hoop Hogs notebook when I, scouted TCU, when I talked about the reason this is good to play on the road. I think for more than one reason, because of where it's at and the timing of it. So let's just get into some of those details right now. As a true road game, you're not going to have the comfort level you had at home a week ago. And you've had guys practicing in Fayetteville and the Performance Center, also Bud Walton Arena, June, July, all the way through the fall, when full practice ramped up at the end of September. Obviously, Arkansas, everything they do is in Fayetteville. Then they went on the road for those tip-off tour events in front of fans. It wasn't a game atmosphere whatsoever. Those weren't intra-squad scrimmages. There was some competitive 5-on-5, but that was players against GAs. And finally, you got your first true dress rehearsal against an opponent, and you had that at home. And so all that time now, guys, young players, newcomers to the program, there's a lot of that. TCU's returning one guy from its roster last year. So is Arkansas, Trevor Brazile. We know that. But now you're going on the road with it. So you're going to be tested in a true road environment. It's not on TCU's campus. It's Dickey's Arena in Fort Worth, so it is a road game, and it is an exhibition game, so we continue to remind folks of that. So you're going to have that. You're going to have a crowd that doesn't favor you. You're going to have an environment that you're not used to. Shooting on rims you're not used to shooting on. And so there's just a lot of things when you go on the road, no matter what the strength of the opponent is. And look, TCU may be down, or it may appear that way. Apparently, the Horned Frogs had a secret scrimmage, I think, last weekend on Saturday against Texas and San Antonio, according to John Rothstein of CBS Sports, and got beat 80-52. But it's really a dangerous thing to compare scores in college basketball and start licking your chops. Yeah, to some degree that could mean that that this is not a good TCU team, at least not right now. It could also mean that that TCU had a bad game and is now going to be on its home court and has worked on some things. And then again, Arkansas is going to be playing away from home for the first time. We're still not sure if this Razorback team is going to be at full strength. Jonas Adu missed the Kansas game. There are 3 players that were out for the tip-off tour event. Arkansas got 2 of those back, and 3-4 combo for to do Thiero, shooting guard. I'll call him a combo guard. I think he can play the wing. I think he can 1 through 3. Nelly Davis, and by those guys were back for Kansas. Adu was out. We did not get any clarity on Adu's availability. For tonight's game, when Chen Coleman, associate coach, addressed the media on Wednesday to preview this matchup. And I get the impression that maybe they hold him out, or maybe he's ready to go, and that proves me wrong. But I feel like I got the impression they're going to save him up for the start of the regular season, which begins Wednesday at home against Lipscomb. So just a few days from now, less than a week. But one of the other significant things about playing this game on the road, and I think it's not only good to test yourself on the road, to get a game away from home that doesn't count, doesn't hurt you, win or lose. It doesn't help you either if you win, except maybe you learn some things with a win, and certainly if you lose, you hope you learn. But the other part of it is just the travel to Dallas-Fort Worth. It's a new program again, new coaching staff, and assembling a team of players that, for with just a few exceptions, haven't even played together prior to this season and prior to the other night against Kansas. You're going to Dallas-Fort Worth. You say, well, what does that matter? A road game's a road game. Well, Arkansas' second game of the regular season to end that first week. I mentioned Lipscomb on Wednesday, November 6th. Arkansas then is back out of Bud Walton Arena, back in Dallas at American Airlines Center to play Baylor, a neutral site game against the eighth-ranked Baylor Bears, who some people think are, will challenge for a Final Four run when the dust settles in March on the regular season. And so that's a big-time early season matchup, nationally televised game. I believe it's ESPNU that'll have that one. But you're going to be back in Dallas. So the way that Coleman described it, this will be a roadkill. They're preparing for roadkill. Whatever that verbiage means, the idea is they want to establish not only their travel routine, how they do things on the road, but you're in the same environment, the same area. So the travel time should be similar. Everything should be basically a walkthrough. You could consider this charity exhibition game a walkthrough on how to play on the road, the stuff off the court, getting ready to go onto the court and take care of business. So I think that adds a little bit more to it. You always think the devil's in the details. Those little things could end up being something big for Arkansas in just over a week. Remember that Baylor game after Lipscomb, that's only 8 days away, just over a week. So things are really ramping up and moving along quickly. TCU, again, this is a team that's bringing one guy back, 17 minutes a game. Ernest Udeh, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Junior, UDEH is the spelling, 17.3 minutes per game last year. 60% shooting from the field, a little over 4 points per game, 5 rebounds. That's the lone guy they've got coming back. Big 6'11" body, though. Started his career at Kansas, played at TCU. The Horned Frogs last year, 21-13, 9-9 in the Big 12. Doesn't sound all that great, but that's been arguably the best conference year in and year out. That was an NCAA tournament team, TCU. But again, it is a rebuild, and they've got a lot of incoming freshmen. A couple of them are red shirts, but they got 5 or so true freshmen coming in. And then they went to the portal. Trezarian White, a 6'6" wing that Arkansas played against in that North Carolina-Wilmington matchup last year. This is interesting. White was part of a team that had already beaten Wilmington, Kentucky, in Rupp Arena, a top 10 ranked Kentucky team at the time. Won that game in Rupp Arena in the non-conference in December. And then Arkansas got Wilmington after losing to Greensboro early in November. Got Wilmington late in December, and Arkansas won at home, but Trezarian White scored 28 points against the Razorbacks. So John Calipari's had a taste of White and a loss to Wilmington on Kentucky's home court, and then White had a big game, and really Arkansas, I think, won that by 16 points, 106-90. It was a track meet kind of a game. And we may see that against TCU. That's one of the key guys. Frankie Collins, a transfer guard out of Arizona State. Vashon Alette out of Old Dominion is going to be one of their key guys that was brought in the portal. R.J. Jones, a guard out of the Texas area. By the way, Trezarian White's from Mansfield, Texas, so he's back home in the Dallas area. R.J. Jones also from Texas. a guard that Arkansas's previous staff recruited out of high school, was at Kansas State and has transferred in. So multiple transfers, a couple other guys that might factor in key there for TCU. And if you look at TCU last year and how they wanted to play, we'll see what this roster is able to do. I mean, 80-52 against Texas, that's a wipeout. Texas is one of the more respected SEC teams coming into the season, a ranked team, top 20 team. I think Texas is right around 19th in the preseason poll, Arkansas 16th. But TCU did not fare well in that game if that score is accurate, 80-52. But they want to run. Last year, nearly between 79 and 80 points per game, ranked 50th in Division I. But here's where TCU is really good and tells you that they want to get into an up and down game. They were top 20 in these different statistical categories. Top 20 in steals per game at just over 9 per game. Top 20 in assists per game, around 17 assists per game. And their field goal attempts from the 2-point range were also ranked top 20 in Division I. And that tells you if you're taking a lot of twos and you're getting a lot of steals and you're getting a lot of assists, they're probably getting out in transition and getting some easy scores. And they're really pushing pace. They played 10 play. They went 10 deep last year. They had 10 players consistently playing in games. Only one of those averaged less than double-figure minutes, but still played just about every game. So his 9 or so minutes were important to play that brand. This is a different roster. I'm assuming Jamie Dixon, we'll see. This is what you love about basketball. Does he stick to that format when the way he recruited? Did he think he was sticking to that format and doesn't have the firepower that he thought he would? So we'll see. I mean, 80-52. One team sounds like it played with enough pace in that one exhibition game. You can only take so much from that. So I wonder what the identity of this TCU team will be. That's part of it. But putting that aside, what are the keys for Arkansas? What are things that you can learn from, win or lose? And Arkansas should win this game. But again, we'll see on the road. But what are some of the things that Arkansas maybe wants to continue to improve on? Continue to do well that it did against Kansas. Some of the things that look like could be team strength, some of the things that they didn't do so well. What are some of the keys there? I think one of them is, do you have Jonas Adu back? If you do, he's your starter at the 5. I'm going DJ Wagner, Boogie Fland, Nelly Davis, Adu Thiero, based on the fact that Thiero started the Kansas game. My personal opinion is I want Trevor Brazile in the starting lineup. Either way, Adu Thiero is a starter quality. You could go there and not have him as a 6-man, have Trevin as a 6-man type, and then Jonas Adu. If Adu's not ready and not back, then it's Big Z, who had a big performance against Kansas with no Hunter Dickinson out there, though. The big man for TCU, as far as I know, is going to be ready to go. So, and he's physical, so that's another challenge on the front line that Arkansas didn't really face. Kansas didn't really have bigs that were physical and veteran on that front line that Arkansas went up against last week. And you had some mixed results outside of what Big Z was able to accomplish offensively. Arkansas didn't have a lot more offensive firepower from that front line. It mostly came from DJ Wagner and Boogie Fland. We know that. Even Carter Knox with his 9 points. I mean, he was, outside the top 3 scorers, he was Arkansas's 4th leading scorer. So that's your wing, your backcourt, providing most of that firepower. So I look at that as a do-back. If he is, again, those are the dynamics and how you play that. Carter Knox got the start against Kansas, and they brought Nelly off the bench. I'll be surprised unless Nelly Davis has had a setback physically if he's not back in the starting lineup, but we'll see. But that he's obviously, projected to be an everyday starter. By the way, he picked up a couple of national watch list announcements over the week. Naismith Trophy for the College Basketball Player of the Year. That's one of the more prestigious awards. The National Association of Basketball Coaches in ABC Division I also has him on their watch list for the top player in the country. And these are postseason awards, watch lists released before the season starts. And then both Nelly Davis and Boogie Fland were named to the Jerry West Award watch list, another postseason award that goes to the top shooting guard in college basketball. Well, that's interesting because we know Nelly Davis, that's kind of his wheelhouse. Boogie Fland is a shooting guard, makes assumptions DJ Wagner is your point guard. They're interchangeable as lead guards. Chin Coleman talked more and more about Arkansas having playmakers and that you could, in theory, call anybody a point guard that brings the ball up the court. But you can pay attention to the guys who primarily set things up and the offense runs through. And there was a balance of that with Boogie Fland and DJ Wagner. I thought there was more of it with Fland, and I thought the offense operated just a little bit better with him initiating. Although Wagner was really, really good. Wagner was also, both guys did an excellent job. Fland with those 22 points, 5 assists, 6 steals. That was on the defensive end. And Wagner with 24 points to lead the team. Both of them were efficient shooting the ball. Wagner more efficient from 3. But Wagner also, I think, pulled down 4 or 5 rebounds. So he did and was also excellent on defense. So both of those guys, to me, come into this game trying to build on that. Nelly Davis, a key for me here is not to rush anything with him in terms of expectations on scoring. He didn't shoot well. Get him back. I think get him into the starting lineup if he's ready to go. And then I think the other part of that is continue to run some stuff for him. Arkansas wanted him to get shots up. He did. Took 9. Only made 2. Only made 1 3-pointer, 5 points. Did a lot of good things in 50 ball situations, forcing jump ball, attacking the glass, just a pest and all over the court. On the defensive end, on offense, it wasn't there for him. So continue to run some stuff for him. Arkansas proved that it doesn't need him to be the leading scorer or hit 15 to 25 on a night against the number 1 team. Yes, shorthanded and still won by 16. There's firepower in the up and down that roster, but they would like to see him maybe get more comfortable, and we'll see. But I think you do make it somewhat of a priority to get him involved. I think some of the other priorities, Arkansas wants to improve on the glass. Big Hunter Dickinson out. You thought Arkansas would do better. -1 overall in rebounding against Kansas. Not necessarily a big deal, but minus, I think, 2 or 3 on the offensive glass and -5 in second chance points. If this ends up being a close game, those are the kind of margins that can be the difference in winning and losing. There's no reason with Arkansas's length, athleticism, size. I thought Arkansas was bigger just about everywhere against Kansas and still managed to be a little bit underperforming on the glass. So look for Arkansas maybe to try to make a statement there against this TCU team. We'll see how that works. Again, a lot of question marks. I think more for TCU because they just don't have the quality of talent and the level of high-level guys that Arkansas brought in. So, yeah, each team brings one guy back. I think Arkansas's group. And Arkansas, based on what I saw against Kansas, answered a lot of questions. You just wonder, does it translate to a road game? Does Boogie Fland, now that he's away from home, now he first college experiences, does it impact him at all? DJ Wagner's been through SEC wars. He's been on the road in the SEC and played in some of these games. So you would think maybe he's a steady hand, and maybe Boogie Fland's just unflappable. That New York City guard, doesn't matter what the environment is, he's going to show up and do his thing. These are things we're going to find out. I think the other thing is Arkansas, I mentioned getting on the glass. You want to see carryover on what worked on offense. A lot worked. I really like the 2-man game with Big Z. I like all the moving. Arkansas is so much different than it was last year. You see a lot of movement off the ball, a lot of screen setting. Sometimes they're legitimate screens, sometimes they're go screens, slip screens, but you see a lot of stuff to occupy defenders and actually get defenders moved into spots. It's not necessarily that you're going to create some action right off of that initial screen side, but you're trying to get defenders to one side and maybe isolate someone on the other, or go in one direction and then quickly reverse it. And you created space just by running all that action and getting players pulled to a certain part of the floor. And you saw Big Z really thrive in that as a passer out high. He can knock down threes if you leave him open. And guys cutting back door, he's going to find him. But then when he slips down and posts up, he did some nice things in the post. You want to see him continue to build on that. You'd like to see more from Trevor in Brazil offensively. He did some really good things. I think when you look at Adu Thiero offensively, he's going to be an opportunistic guy. Slasher, get out and transition, give you some blue-collar stuff, some hustle plays around the basket, maybe some putbacks. We'll see. I want him to improve his three-point shooting. We'll see if he's a little more involved in some of the offensive stuff. But you want to see Arkansas continue what worked. Arkansas, speaking of transition, if this does turn into a track meet, Arkansas was good in that department. One fast break points, +6 in that when the dust settled against Kansas. Had 12 steals in that game, 17 turnovers. So all of these things, if TCU wants to run, that might be just fine with Calipari and this Arkansas team, because that's how he built this roster. He wants to get up and down as well. But the other thing is Arkansas limiting turnovers. It was a mixed bag against Kansas. The first half, Arkansas only 3 turnovers, 10 in the second half. So you finish that game sloppy with the basketball. You don't want that to carry over on the road against the team. I told you last year, even though it's a different set of players, what the blueprint was force turnovers, get a lot of steals, live ball turnovers, get out in transition, share the basketball, playing at that kind of pace, play 10 guys, and just try to run and get up and down. And so Arkansas is going to have to limit turnovers, I think, tonight, or try to limit turnovers. And it may be that Arkansas's physical talent, athleticism, length, all that, if some of these statistical categories mirror each other in some ways, it may still be that Arkansas is the better team. Look, Arkansas shot nearly 49% from the field. And even though the defense had its moments against Kansas, the Jayhawks at times getting on the offensive glass, thought there were some breakdowns at times for Arkansas, did a great job on the perimeter, stay in front of guards, especially in the first half. And then that became a mixed bag at different times of the game. No team is perfect. Teams have letdowns in game. Consistently, though, Arkansas was solid at both ends, efficient on offense, tough on defense, disruptive. And it could be another game like that, or at least if you're John Calipari, that's what you want. All right, 21 minutes in, we kind of went through it. I favor Arkansas to win this game, by the way. I think most people would. It's an exhibition game. That's the beauty of it. So if you lose and I'm wrong, who cares? You throw it out the window, you learn from it, and then you've got a pretty quick turnaround. Wednesday, you open your regular season at home against Lipscomb, a team that nearly beat Arkansas last year, different coaching staff, different team, obviously. Nearly beat Arkansas in North Little Rock. It came down to a final, the last possession or so in the final minute, and Arkansas eked out a win. Had to score in the final minute they were down a point and had to flip that. So Lipscomb's a good team out of Nashville, good mid-major. That'll be a tough battle. All right, let's get into recruiting real quick. We're going to get through this fast today. Caleb Wilson is scheduled to visit Arkansas. If someone has seen something different, because the first comment was it's time to move on. He tweeted on Monday that he is coming in for a visit this weekend. A day before that, I had heard that he was telling players out there in his class that he was still wanting to visit Arkansas. I tweeted that out. He still plans to visit. Sure thing. The next day, he puts out the tweet that he's coming. So that was on Monday. Things can change rapidly. Guys skip visits. It happens all the time. We'll see what happens. Arkansas's basketball team's playing tonight as the weekend begins at TCU. And so we always talked about prior that this could be one of those things where they bring him in on Saturday. Well, that looks like the blueprint. Whether he technically arrives in the airport tonight and gets a good night's sleep here, however his travel is, the visit will start tomorrow. Arkansas should be back. The basketball team will be back. The football game tomorrow, that'll be an opportunity to go see Arkansas play a ranked team. I'm not sure about the weather in Fayetteville for the weekend. And so, that obviously can sometimes impact what your crowd and your atmosphere looks like on game day if you got inclement weather. And so that visit, it's still a big deal to me. A lot of thought around the campfire as Kentucky's in the lead here, maybe up the ante on the NIL package to $2 million. That's a pretty spiffy price tag if that's what it is. Been a lot of conjecture about this. I always said this guy had a visit planned, and it's happening now a week later than what the target date was for the longest time. It moved out a little bit. And we'll just see. I think there's a lot of people in Lexington, a lot of people that cover Kentucky basketball that may view this as Kentucky's to lose, but they're also very nervous that John Calipari has Caleb Wilson, number 5, according to ESPN, 6'9" combo forward out of Atlanta. Priority guy has been. Calipari's been on the road in Atlanta to see him a lot. Since the early, I think September 4th was when the current NCAA recruiting period opened up. And most recently that I'm aware of, when he was out there about a week or so ago, took Chin Coleman and the other associate head coach, Kenny Payne. So both associate coaches, along with Calipari, out to the ATL to see Caleb Wilson. And now you get him on campus. And this is where Calipari, to me, when you get he's a serious recruiter. He doesn't waste time on guys that aren't serious about him and his program. Arkansas's got the purse for NIL, but they have limits. They put valuations on guys. I talk about it all the time. And then it's just a matter of where are they willing to go. I think Wilson, again, is probably the most versatile defender, the best two-way player, meaning offense and defense. Give me that defense first. I think that's his biggest strength because he can defend multiple positions. He's switchable. He can even help you defend a 5. At the college level, I see him as a 3-4 combo. I'm going to play a lot of that 4. But again, he just brings a lot to the table. An emerging skill on offense, slasher, putback guy. Working on the 3-point shot. I saw some good things there when he competed and helped Knight Riders Elite win that 17 and under Nike Peach Jam Championship, the creme de la creme of the July finales. So that's a big visit weekend. We'll see where it goes. Malik Thomas, the 5-star guard out of Pittsburgh, plays at Overtime Elite in Atlanta. We know his saga, missing a couple Arkansas visits. Took one about a month ago, early October, when Arkansas beat Tennessee and the fans rushed the field. He was there. Great visit weekend. We've talked all about it. I've said not only was Arkansas the leader, but barring something weird, crazy happening with NIL and an NIL leverage game with that Kansas State visit looming later in October, he's Arkansas's. Then we reported that he had privately committed to John Calipari and said he was going to be a Razorback. Then I was able to confirm a few days later the Kansas State visit was off. That was for last weekend. That's come and gone. He didn't take that visit. And I'm told, not told, I've heard he could make an announcement as soon as next week. Remember, the early signing period, he's expected to sign early. The early signing period is November 13th through the 20th. There is a dead period in there, I think, from the 9th through the 11th. So at some point, I expect him to come off the board and sign with Arkansas, publicly come off the board and make that announcement public. Again, it could be as soon as next week. Maybe it's a little later. And if he draws it out to the spring, I think any player that does it, we saw Arkansas in Eric Milsman's first true recruiting class. He had a 4-player class ranked 5th by ESPN. In-state guys, Moses Moody, Jalen Williams, Devo Davis, and KK Robinson. Only Devo Davis signed in the early period, but all 4 of them committed during the early period. Moses Moody, Jalen Williams, and KK Robinson all waited and did their signing in the spring. Of course, recruiting's changed a lot. The portal's a much bigger factor now. Players need to get off the pot and get something done a lot of the time in the early period to make sure they're on board. With these 5 stars, they don't have that kind of pressure, but at the same time, maybe get it out of the way. So I think Malik Thomas gets that done. Caleb Wilson, we'll keep an eye on that. I feel like this is down to Kentucky. It's been Kentucky, North Carolina. Arkansas is clearly in the mix in the final group if John Calipari is bringing them to campus. Period. Full stop. Arkansas is right there. And now we just pay attention. We may not get specifics on NIL, but we'll see what kind of momentum Arkansas gets. If he makes it on campus, let's keep an eye on that. He says he is. So that's on him if he doesn't, because it's not somebody else putting that out there. It's him putting it out there. So he has to own it. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Arkansas is in great shape with either him or Chris Sinak, who's already taken a visit, another versatile frontline guy, 6'11". I think he's more of a 4-5 at the college level, and probably will complement 5s, though. So he can definitely play that stretch 4 spot. Chris Sinak out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Sometimes I say New Orleans. They're right next to each other, that area. But at Link Academy in Branson, Missouri. So he's already recently, a few weeks ago, took that visit to Arkansas. LSU has been perceived as the front runner there, and I think LSU will dump a bunch of NIL money his way to keep him in his hometown. They've had a good recruiting class so far, but they cannot deliver the promise of what Calipari has shown track record-wise of getting guys ready for the next level, getting them drafted high, and then watching all those guys play out max contracts, so many of them, and in second and third and fourth contracts. So he helps guys get ready in that 1 year. So there's that going for Arkansas. But that feels like an LSU, Arkansas, Kentucky mix. So now you're in the mix for both of those guys heavily. Keep an eye on Nate Ament, the 5-star out of Virginia. Calipari's been out to see him at least 4 times. And now look, there's opportunities to visit in November still, even after this weekend. I don't expect any surprises this weekend in terms of 5-star visitors, aside from Caleb Wilson. At least I haven't heard of any. But Nate Ament, 6'9", another guy that's a 3'4", probably more wing in terms of how he defends and his skill set compared to a Caleb Wilson, who I think is a 3'4", who's going to probably trend more as a 4 at the college level. Not exactly the same kind of player, but Ament's a guy that let's keep an eye on it. It's thought that he's going to wait till the spring. We'll see what happens there. But another top 5 rated 5-star out of Virginia. Again, Calipari's out to see him quite often. Sean Abayev, a top 25 rated 6'7" combo guard out of Fort Lauderdale, has visited Arkansas actually midweek, right after the Nellie Davis visit, when Darius Acuff, who was committed to Arkansas, 5-star point guard, top 5 rated guy. Man, there's so many it's just too much 5-stars floating around my head trying to remember all of it and talk about it. But Abayev is a guy that at least one recruiting analyst that I'm aware of, and I've been saying this for a while, believes Arkansas is in the driver's seat there. We'll see about that. But this is lining up when you look across the board at some Isaiah Seeley, who I've talked about, in-state 55th ranked by ESPN, 6'7" combo guard at Springdale. He's told me he wants to visit Arkansas over a football weekend. And so there's still opportunities to do that. That's where I was getting at. You've got this weekend. And again, let's see if Seeley comes down this weekend after just coming to that Kansas game last weekend. But you have a bye week, and then you have Texas in Fayetteville. Arkansas is going to host the Texas Longhorns. And that's on, I believe, November 16th. Well, the early period runs the 13th through the 20th. And there is a dead period there, but I think I mentioned that. That's like that runs November 11th through the 14th. So it overlaps the very start of the early signing period, but then it ends, and you would be able to bring him in that week, any visitor in that weekend for the Texas game. So keep an eye on that potentially for anybody as something you're doing. Now the basketball team will be in its season at that point, and I believe they have a game on the 18th. They have a game on the 13th against Troy at home, and then I think the next game is on the 18th against Pacific. They'll host them at Bud Walton Arena, so that'd be a Monday. So you could use that weekend to bring in a visitor, and it doesn't conflict with any game that you have. And if you have a basketball and you do have that football game against Texas. All right, 31 minutes in, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to be succinct today. I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I am not going to be in Dallas-Fort Worth tonight for this game. I had gotten my media credentials approved for that. However, I've been helping out Lanny Beavers, who owns HogvilleNET and HogvilleNET YouTube. He also owns Fearless Friday, which is the premier high school football reporting and scoreboard on Friday nights in Arkansas high school football. He's been shorthanded this year. I've been helping him with that. We had some coverage last week where I was able to get up to Fayetteville to cover that Kansas game, get back down the hill, and I was getting home around 4:30, and I ended up finishing up the scoreboard. I spent a couple of hours getting that knocked out before I went to sleep at 7 in the morning for a couple of hours. This week, though, we don't have that coverage, so I'm going to stick back here, take care of that. This is no TV, no live stream. It's just radio. I'll be tuning in. I'll be taking notes. I'm going to have a game story, even though I don't have eyes on it. I will not be back on likely tonight for a post game. I'm going to skip that since I'm not there. But tomorrow, because we're in the middle of this visit and there is a football game during the day, I may come back on and do a review of what I learned and what highlights I saw from TCU and kind of follow up on some talking points there. So I very well may do a Saturday follow-up at some point. And, and also Caleb Wilson will be on his visit. So there may be some things to talk about there, confirming that he's there. I've been getting feedback mid-visit. So if I get that, that's why. So just, be ready for me to come back on tomorrow. I don't typically do them daily, but this may turn into that as we move into the weekend. I hope everybody had a safe Halloween and got tricks and not got treats and not tricks. No bag of rocks like Charlie Brown. But I appreciate everyone who tunes in for the content here at HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If you haven't hit subscribe, like, or share, please do that for us. But until next time, take care, and I'll see you then.